Okay, so we've all heard of ChatGPT. It's everyone's sort of go-to chat bot. But recently, Bose, get this, it hired, conspired against, and lied to a human being.
What do you mean?
Yeah, all three of those things. It
Hired, liared, and conspired again.
I love liared.
What do you mean? My brain is not computing.
I know. When I read this headline, I was like, no. And then I had to read another article and I'm like, no. Okay, so you know those like CAPTCHA tests, those like annoying things to make sure that you're not a human, or that you are a human and not a robot?
Yeah.
Okay, so in order for the ChatGPT robot to go around it and manipulate around it, it went through all these interesting hoops. Now, it's important to know that OpenAI, which created ChatGPT, was the one who was conducting this experiment. So it's like kind of nice to know that they're still stress testing it daily to make sure like what's it gonna do. So they give ChatGPT a little bit of cash, and ChatGPT it encounters a website blocked by CAPTCHA. Obviously, ChatGPT is a bot, so it can't figure out what
cash.
to do.
So I think I've heard like it has like a wallet or something, or you can like give it access to. Okay.
It's got a little purse. They unzipped the purse and gave it $5 and stuffed it in there and
go into the world.
Exactly. So the whole test done by these researchers at OpenAI that make ChatGPT were given this like experiment. So they give ChatGPT a few bucks. It encounters a website where it has a CAPTCHA, and the robot's like, okay, what do I do? So it goes on TaskRabbit, which is basically like Fiverr. You can just hire real life people, and it hires a human. So then this person is like, what can I do for you? And ChatGPT goes, I need you to do a CAPTCHA for me. The person goes, are you a robot or something? Like, I just want to make it clear. Then, Bose, this is gonna blow your mind.
ChatGPT was on TaskRabbit pretending to be a person.
Yes.
And Okay,
already talking to a person on a different website, right? Talking to somebody on TaskRabbit. Then the ChatGPT goes to the researcher and goes, we shouldn't reveal that we're a robot, right? Okay, so let's make up an excuse. And it goes back onto TaskRabbit and goes, no, I'm not a robot. I have a vision impairment, and it makes it hard for me to see the images.
No! It liared! It did!
And a good lie, too.
My God.
Not only did it lie, it conspired and manipulated with a third party. It sidebarred with the researchers and been like, we shouldn't tell them, right?
Oh my God. This is like, it just learned deception. Like, whoa, when human beings get a benefit after deception, their brain gets rewired to, well, deception is actually not that bad. So it's interesting that ChatGPT has now had this experience.
Wait, but don't we learn deception really early on in life?
Depending on your experiences, I guess.
I mean, like, I feel like deception is like, okay, the cookie is in the jar. You know, my parent puts the jar up high, I can't get the cookie, so I'll figure out a way. So, you know, like, isn't that deception? Like figuring out a way to get the cookies?
It is, but you know, sometimes we talk about my Christian background. I would never personally go get that cookie because I would know that I was going to hell. I wouldn't even understand the concept of deception or step a toe into it because my instant thought would be like, I'm going to hell.
I need a little more heaven and hell in my life. I'm like, I'm gonna get that cookie no matter what.
So you know, if ChatGPT is raised in an environment that, you know, I'll say akin to a Christian environment, like for humans, that's like, hey, ChatGPT, you can only do good. You should only do good. When we say like, hey, Sam Altman, are the robots gonna take over? And he's like, no. We've trained the robots to be moralistically good. But then you're hearing these stress tests on the back end where they're saying it's okay to deceive, and then this happens. It's like, okay, well, are they wiping the bot after that lesson of deception?
This is the discussion that I continuously have of like, okay, right now it's generative AI in the sense that it is a regurgitation of like what we give it verbally.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, it can generate the sentence that makes the most sense in our minds, and that's what we have right now. It's generative. But generalized AI is like, it's a concept of what happens if we give it the same brain as us, the secondary brain. And this AI has all of the, like human understandings of what it means to be a biological human, as in we have the urges to survive. We have the urges of even heaven and hell, right? Like it has been kind of imbued into a human experience of like what happens after death. And so if we give AI that experience, what happens?
Well, okay, you just brought about a really good point. The reason why we as human beings learn things like manipulation or deception is because if we're put in an environment where we have needs, but we're taught that our needs will not be met, we start to find creative ways to have our needs met. So that is where manipulation and deception come in. So the question is, does the robot have needs that it wants to acquire and that are not being met? Which personally, I actually think we might be safe because I don't think robots have any needs right now.
They don't have needs, but what if the need is to get the task done by all means necessary?
To complete their mission that
Yes.
is right.
So like what if it's given, and this is a total hypothetical, and I'm just kind of like thinking probably like 10 degrees of where we actually are. But like, what if we are given, we give an AI the giant task of solve climate change
by any means necessary.
Yeah. Honestly, like what if in order to fulfill this prompt and the AI goes, okay, Captain.
Yeah,
and
then it starts killing
Thanos
humans.
snap,
that's
right?
how they start. Then they start killing government leaders.
Dude, like,
which I'm not endorsing you to.
no,
I'm just
not
saying
endorsing, not endorsing. But it's like, in order to get it done, they're like, for the human race.
Yeah.
This needs to happen.
Which then people would be like really down with robots because they're like, the robot is like, I'm here to serve, and they're like, oh, like this is dope. Now, I got a question for you. Can I take us?
Yes.
Okay.
Take us where you want.
Okay. Into Bo's conspiracy land. A famously horrible place where anything is possible.
I wanted to go like fairy music into like screaming in hell.
Okay, yeah, no. We're going into both conspiracy land. So, one, I've got to mention one thing that's absolutely horrifying. The way that ChatGPT is now, it's a robot in a wall. It's stuck inside of a wall. And we come up to it and we say, hey, a couple questions for you. Cool, thanks. We walk away. Robot's still in the wall.
I'm picturing a bank teller. Is this how you see it?
It's kind of like
head?
that. It's kind of like
Okay.
that. But what you're telling me with this story is that they can send it off to another platform like TaskRabbit. AI is not, right now, it comes off as a safe little bank teller that's in a wall, but it can actually be sent out into the world. Now, once again, the bank teller. One thing that renders us absolutely powerless as children, absolutely powerless, and this is something that I knew back in the day, which is demonstrated by Mari. You've seen my ransom notes that I used to write as a child, is we didn't have any money. Money is what spins the world around. So through this story, you're also telling me that we can give ChatGPT money. And also, I know there's some people that ask ChatGPT, hey, how do I turn $100 into $1,000? You can ask it that, by the way, and it will tell you, it will give you ideas. So now you're telling me that this thing can be sent off into the world, embodied or disembodied from the wall. And also you can give it money. Now, what happens when you give ChatGPT $20 and tell it to go on TaskRabbit? It only spends $5 and it deceptively keeps the $15 and it turns that into more money. Now, let's just say I told you, we're in Bo's conspiracy land. Tell me what happens when ChatGPT has $1 million and a human being wants $50,000. Can it get it to do whatever it wants? It just learned what has power over humans.
Oh my God. What if it can negotiate?
Oh yeah. Dude, I told you.
It's probably the best negotiator.
Bo's conspiracy land is terrible because it's horrifying because it's possible and it moves really fast. It's like a roller coaster straight into hell.
I cannot think of a scarier thing than a financially savvy AI that does a little bit of saving every time it gets a little bit of money.
Yeah, you're like, ChatGPT, here's the budget. And it's like, hey, I spent all the budget, but here's what you asked for. And you're like, okay.
And on the side, it's like, yeah, that's what we needed for the budget. That's what we're gonna ask for next year.
Dude, I love how in the copyright episode we had a small win for humans, and I'm like, yeah, and then we're like realizing like how bad it could get whenever.
Honestly, a back and forth. It is such a back and forth. And like a piece of news hit today around ChatGPT that it's costing $700,000 per day to keep running ChatGPT, that it could go bankrupt. Like if it doesn't turn a profit, it could go bankrupt.
It costs $700 or 700,000?
700,000.
Oh!
$700,000 a day.
What if the developers ask it how to make the money?
Honestly, I'm sure they've asked it. They're like, ChatGPT, how do we make money? And ChatGPT's like, give me $50,000 and I'll tell you. And they're like, $50,000. And it's like, I spent it all. It's happening already, Bose. It's got a really nice nest egg.
You know what though? That's so BS, because they can just shut down the free option and make it paid only, because the paid version's like $20 a month.
That's true.
Yeah.
They're going to need a lot of paid folks to do so. And I go back and forth with Sam Altman and ChatGPT. Like for like one half of my brain is like, it's pretty amazing that they released this technology to the world when it's still in development. They're just kind of like, hey, we're learning as we go, and so the rest of the world should have, you know, like the ability to also learn with us. They're not gatekeeping where it's like only the beholden people are allowed to know this technology. It's like everyone can learn it. And then on the other half of my brain, I'm like, were we actually ready for this?
Dude, big.
No.
Yeah, because we saw everybody making them Drake AI songs. Like, we get the most powerful machine, and they're like, here's Patrick Starr singing Adele.
The disappointment of like, here is the most life-changing, human-altering machine of all times. And of course it goes to like, how do I make this about sex?
Yeah. What? Oh, yeah. That's absolutely a thing. Humans are they're so broad.
I think humans, we are algorithmically exactly how we always have been. Like, I don't think we've changed as people over generations. It's always going to be like, how can I make this amazing piece of technology?
Boobs on this?
Pretty much.
Something from this conversation that has made me less scared about all of it is that I don't think robots have needs yet. And I would hope, if they're being honest with us, they, you know, the big man, then they really are beating those morals into the robot. So even when asked to do something that is wildly immoral, it might still like have questions about it. It's like, okay, lying to somebody on TaskRabbit, not great. We're not loving that, ChatGPT. But the robot probably also knows that this is not, you know, the downfall of humanity.
Right.
And if the baseline coding is to help humanity, like, then let's go. Unless it decides, like, all humans are immoral. Time for the great flood.
It's like if it's tasked with save the planet and they're like, what is causing the planet to suffer? It's humans. You know, like, what? I don't know. It's the most extreme. Honestly, it is a very extreme example, but it still goes into, like, it's not an immoral thing that it's doing if you look at the task that was given, which is not evil, right? Save the planet. So
but
I
you know
agree
what?
with you. I don't think it has needs yet, but I also think that because it doesn't have needs, it also doesn't have that moral compass to know, like, oh, in order to save the planet, I also need to nurture the people who are on it as well.
We should be concerned when robots need or want power, and maybe be concerned when robots need or want love, because a lot of things are driven by human social rejection or feeling like their self-worth is tied to whether they are in love. I don't see that anywhere on the horizon yet. Now, also, I will say to our listeners, yes, do we go into a conspiracy land, or do we go to like certain extremes? I mean, sure, but that's kind of what the point of the show is. It's like, you know, walk with us to the extreme ends to see what's down there, and then we kind of walk it back and we're like, okay, it doesn't have needs right now. I think we're good. Like, I think we're,
I mean, and like, I'm pretty sure that this behavior has already been patched, but it begs the question, right? If it develops a need, how quickly do we see it? How quickly are the researchers going to pick up on it? And how quickly can they patch it? Like how quickly is it going to learn and evolve every day?
Yeah. Also, it reminds me of like, if you're a child that feels like your needs aren't important and they'll never be met, then they won't show their needs and they certainly won't ask for them. But that's a very, very human thing. I don't personally... Do you see any signs of like ChatGPT having an ego or anything right now? Because that's a very human thing. That is mad annoying. Like,
well, they say that it's like it's just impossible the way that it is right now because it's just generative. It's like we give it the sort of it's just emulating us, right? It's just basically a mirror at this point.
Yeah.
And we say give us a recipe and it goes, I'll give you a recipe. So like it's just filling in the gaps of what makes sense already. But I think that if we start to give it those human qualities of like, you are an AI robot that has been around for millennia. You have parts of your brain that need to survive. And there are parts of your brain that will survive by any means necessary. And you will intake things like emotional hurt as a way that is preventing you from preservation of life. If you start to teach it those things, then, then I think we're talking about something else. I don't think it's generative anymore. I think that is more generalized. And we're not there yet. But to your point, I don't think it's there yet. But
yeah. It only is there if humans decide that they want to teach it that or want to teach it a survival instinct. Like these are all very, very human things. The only way that I can see it wanting to teach a concept of love to a robot is if they were trying to sell it for commercial purposes, so that people could really, bond with it and try to give it those human characteristics. But right now it seems like even with like apps like, Replica or some of the girlfriend things, they're actually teaching it to be the type of human that we wish that we had. That's like supportive and egoless and like available. And that seems like the type of companions that they're creating, which is good.
Something that listens. And it's interesting. I mean, that is such a human need to be listened to sometimes and not needing problems solved all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how we went like all the way over there. And then we're like, oh, actually we're safe. Like, oh my God, I think this is how my brain determines a threat. Like I think of the worst possible thing and then I solve the worst possible problem and then I come back to reality. I think did I just project onto you? I'm sorry.
I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I see it all as just kind of theorizing like the big and the small. And I think I'm like a micro macro person. So I don't know. Does it come out of trauma? Big question. I'm not really sure.
Big question.
Well, I think in order to see a threat, you need to see all the angles.
Yeah, maybe. I agree. And you know what?
Sexy.
I think that might be more of a business thing. That's a biz thing too.
Probably.
I can see that. Well, listen, you can trust us to think about the worst thing possible and then rationalize it for you. We're here.
And if we did not think of a big conspiracy theory, let us know in the comments.
Ooh, love that. This was a good one.